I wanted to ask you, just in light of some of the negative stuff that happens with like the George Floyd situation, and even though we saw some degree of justice, it wasn't the full length of what it could have been. So political stuff, what I'm saying, even racial matters, stuff that matters to our society on the political spectrum. Would you recommend that artists run advertisements on political matters?
I probably wouldn't, for many, many reasons. Not to say that if you have something on your heart that you shouldn't make a song about it, but just keep in mind that the ad platforms have certain restrictions around like what you can advertise on, not just what you can upload, although these days they have a lot of restrictions on what you can even say.
Wow.
But in terms of what you advertise on, if you go into Facebook and Instagram ads, like you have to select that as a category before you even run ads on it. Mm-hmm. So if you try to run, like let's say you made a song about that whole situation and you just had something on your heart and you wanted to run some Facebook ads on it, you can't just have that go as an ad.
Okay.
It's gonna get flagged because it needs to be a special ad category before it. So even if you're on like YouTube, for instance, I think all of them is pretty much the same thing. Like, so they're really not the best for advertising. And we get these orders a decent amount. Like we were getting them more over the summer with some of the protests and all that stuff. And then, it just seems like there's just more and more stuff. But we typically we have our own guidelines around it. So it's usually I think if somebody's allowed to talk about something, obviously, but if they start to like slander an individual or something like that, we usually stay away from it as well. Or if it's like political season, and somebody's like advocating for a specific candidate or party, we usually just stay away from those too. Right. A lot of times, at least these days, journalism has turned into opinion and marketing.
Wow.
But you can study the SEO they do on a lot of the like legacy news, or even like a lot of the new news people on YouTube and whatnot. Yeah. They're going after SEO terms.
Yeah.
So it's not just they're talking 100%. About something that's trendy. They talk about it because a lot of people are going to search it, and then Fox News or CNN will have a certain authority to their websites. When you have a website, you have a domain authority to it, and you also have like some sort of authority whether if you have a certain number of subscribers on YouTube or something. So your content's going to rank easier whenever you come out with new content. That's why they're able to stay at the top of the searches. So if you search for a news story, usually those are going to be the first ones that come up. Well, at least in like Google, those are going to be the first ones that come up. And then if you search like a DuckDuckGo, that's going to give you different results. Right, so even in terms of like you doing your SEO for music, keep those in mind.
Okay.
Because I always talk about how you can also do Microsoft ads as well as Google ads, and like there's other ad platforms out there that aren't going to be as robust as YouTube or Google or Facebook or Instagram, but they're still going to have people searching on them. So I know that Microsoft is like a collective sort of search engines.
Really?
They don't just have Bing. I think it's like Bing and then DuckDuckGo and then some others that you can run ads on through there. But like you don't just have to ask like, is Facebook or Instagram the only ad platform I can run ads on? So that's a slight tangent, but still relevant to what's being discussed. But to the original question, I wouldn't expect to have your song that's like about the political content or social justice issue or anything like that be the one that's going to have the least restrictions on it. It's going to be the one that has the most restrictions.
Gotcha.
So even when there was the presidential campaigns going on, Facebook was reporting on how much each candidate was spending. I guess that's a part of whatever transparency they had during that time. They were reporting on how much each candidate, or at least each major candidate, was spending on their advertising on Facebook and Instagram.
Right.
So that just lets you know like how restrictive that is, or how transparent you have to be with that type of stuff. So that's what I'd say on it. I'd say it doesn't hurt to maybe do a song or two that's on your heart. but I wouldn't bet on it being the one that you're going to run ads on.
Makes sense. That's good, man.